Today's class is going to be your presentations. I'm going to take a back seat and you have to tell me what is contained, what are the key points which have been given in the report by Lawyers Collective on the implementation of Protection of Women Against Domestic Violence Act. Is that all right? Everybody has read?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who else is saying yes? Prakriti, Anjali, Naren, Kushal. I can see some names.
Ma'am, I have read a few of the points, not the
Yeah,
whole
I've said at
report.
least one. At least one. We have done it. It's perfectly fine for today's class. We will read the report by cumulative contributions from each one of you. So who wants to start?
Ma'am, I'll start.
Okay, Chavi.
So starting with under the Act on finding the domestic violence, the magistrate has the power, so he can give various orders to protect the rights of the woman. First, foremost is the right to share household. So I'll be covering the woman's right to reside in husband's rented premises, and
Okay.
there are basically two cases in that.
Yeah, tell us.
So yes, first the case is Kavita Das versus MCT of Delhi. This is a Delhi High Court case. In this, the couple, they married in 1975, and in 2009, the husband, he abandoned his wife, and they were living in a rented premises since then. And after that, the wife was continuing to living in that household only, but the husband, with the connivance of the landlord, he got the wife evicted from the premises. And finally in 2009, the wife started living in a different accommodation, and he filed a divorce petition after that, and he even coerced his wife to sign the MOU outside the court. And so the wife, she went under section 12, she claimed relief, and she was also granted relief. So she was paid an amount of money, and also the amount for the rent, which is 25,000. After that, in 2009 itself, so she took the help of the protection officer, and now the husband was living in a different premises. So she obtained the key, and now she started living in that premises with the husband after that. And the divorce petition was going on. Now she again claimed under section 17 and 19 an interim order before the magistrate. So first the magistrate granted it, but later on he reversed the order. And it was even confirmed by the Sessions Court, which said that you have signed the MOU, so you cannot live in that household, and that new share house, and the new house is not a share household. And then finally she went to the Delhi High Court for quashing the FIR, which was against her, which was of criminal trespass, and the order of the Sessions Court. And then the Delhi High Court referred to a case of the Supreme Court, which says that the phrase shared household, which is used, it includes any household which is owned or tenanted by either of the parties in respect the woman or the respondent, or both jointly and singly have any right. Now, since the woman was still the legally wedded wife of the husband, so she had a right to live with the husband, whether it be a rented premises or it's if it's like acquired by the husband, or if it's a joint family, or it's an ancestral home, she has a right to live in that property. And they even directed that she has a right to live in that property. And the order of the magistrate and session court, they defeated the purpose of the act, which they have not granted relief to the woman, even though she was living with the husband, and she obtained the key with the consent of the husband from the protection officer. And so she was given, so the FIR was also quashed. And now the second case. In this case, where the
first
husband...
one is Kavita Das versus NCT of Delhi?
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, in this particular case, so the husband, with the connivance of the landlord, they both evicted the wife. Whereas I've studied, like I was reading this in US, which is about, yes. So in various states, if there is a reported incident of domestic violence, So the landlord, he has to, in different
Report.
states, so California, Francisco, they have a law which says that if a resident, there has been a domestic violence case and 60 days of termination of residential tenancy by the person. So the if a residential tenant, an application for residential tenancy, or a member of the tenant or the applicant household is a victim of domestic violence, and firstly it is evidence and secondly it's documented, with respect to that, the landlord will not terminate or fail to renew the residential tenancy in that case. And even he can also, he has to even change, he can even change the locks if the offender is not living with the woman and he's been accused of domestic violence. And also if they are living in a particular household and the husband is accused of domestic violence, in certain cases also the landlord, the aggrieved woman, it gives the right to that the lease duration can be terminated off quite early also. If she's not willing to live and there's a lease agreement vis-a-vis of that particular property. And now it's the next case, which is Vandana versus T. Shrikant and Krishnachari. In this, the judgment, basically the aggrieved woman, that it is a right to reside in the husband's house. And the court went on to discuss section 2F and 2S, which says in this particular case, the couple was married according to the rituals only, and the marriage was also registered, which they eventually even claimed that it was not a valid, it was a dubious marriage, and it is not a valid marriage. They even contested that, which was later the court did not accept the contention. So in this particular case, the marriage took place. So the court gave a correct interpretation of section 2F and 2S, which says that the word live or at any point of time live would include the purview right to live also, right to live to the wife. And the share household, the judgment also clarified that the woman's right to protection under section 17 of the act coexist with her right to live in the shared household. And it is not dependent whether she has physically lived there or not, because over here they were saying that she had not resided, like physically she had not resided. So the court even said that there are particular instances also. For example, they even mentioned, so there's a case where the husband and the woman, they went on honeymoon, and after when they returned, so she went to a parental home. And there are even such certain rituals that even before the consummation of marriage, because of some rituals, she has to go to a parental home. So, and if there's an incident of domestic violence, so you cannot claim, and we will not deny the woman relief or if the other party is contending that she has not lived physically over there. And the court said, a marriage which is valid and subsisting on the relevant date automatically confers a right upon the wife to live in that shared household as on an equal partner in the joint venture of running a family, and she'll be entitled, and it will be a domestic relationship particularly. And the right to live in the shared household, this right is because of this right, the origin of this right was firstly it was a right of maintenance, which finally culminated when the act came into being. And it says that such a statutory right cannot be rendered negatory by asking the wife to look for a rental accommodation. So in this case, the party was saying that we will provide a rental accommodation. The court said no, it is a statutory right. Just because if it's fair and reasonable that you are giving her that we'll give the rent, it will not negate the fact that it is a right to reside in the shared household. And see, the court said that she has a right in that particular premises, and providing alternate accommodation or rent for the same, it would not be adequate and cannot compensate her right to reside in the shared household.
What do you think about this judgment? Any thoughts? I'm asking the whole class, not only to Chavi. Have you understood what are the facts of this case? And have a look at page 4 of the document. What do you think, Shavi, about this case? Is it a good judgment, right direction, wrong direction? What are the implications?
It's a fair interpretation for that matter. The court has even addressed they've even looked at the issues which are like which we say is that they even look at the exceptions that if the wife is not physically lived. So I think it's a correct and fair interpretation of domestic relationship and shared household also.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not just because if her physical presence is not there, so it's giving relief to that woman who may have not lived physically in that house or like for a long time of being for that matter.
So, if you were to look at these facts and in the light of Batra versus Batra decision, are there any contradictions in the two positions, or whether there were distinguishing features because of which Batra survives? And this is, of course, it's a High Court judgment.
Yes, ma'am. Even the respondent cited the Batra judgment.
Yeah.
But the court said that over there, it's a different matter because the premises over there belong to that mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
But I think obviously, when we were discussing Batra, we said that it is not. It is like it was unfair for that woman that the law itself says includes, but the judge what he meant what he analyzed is that it means that, and she was not granted the right to live in that premises even though she lived also. So I think it's a kind of similar, I think, but Batra is a totally a bit on a different level, but I think the right was of she should have been given the right to live in that household.
No, that's a different thing, that what should have been done there. What I'm trying to point out is that despite Batra judgment, we have found judges who have found ways to skirt that binding. In this report, we have also come across cases which are saying, oh, because of Batra, we can't do anything, we are bound by that. And the others are finding different ways to look at the whole scenario. So, which is something, we have to learn, that merely because you have one judgment doesn't mean that all other routes are not available. So you can see how judges also come across with creative interpretations in order to achieve the desired result. So there's not only, and this is what lawyering is all about. There's never only one meaning to a word. One can always find different perspectives to interpret that word. All right. So who is going to present the second point?
Ma'am, I can do it.
You will?
Yes,
Ma'am, I have a comment to make on this in the case which we
please.
just discussed. Yeah, ma'am, this right means this in Vandana case we are talking about the right of the woman to reside in the house. But I was also thinking that we say that right and duties go together. So I think that it's right judgment that we are providing her the right to reside. But what is the duty of the woman here? Because we are talking about running together as a joint family.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think is the duty of the woman?
In this particular case, I am not finding any duty based on the facts given.
But is anybody objecting to that she was not doing her duty?
No,
and
it's
I'm
not
asking an
given in the
abstract
facts.
question. And Karthik, I'm also asking an abstract question, not based only on these facts. What do you think are the duties of the woman who resides in the shared household?
Somewhere we have given the economic duties to men and the household duties to women. Based on that conception, I am saying means the husband would be liable for economic fulfillment or means for all the economic responsibilities. But what is the woman providing in this relationship or in this particular case?
Now, are we saying that is it a quid pro quo that if she doesn't do the household work, we will not give her maintenance? If the
We say
husband
right and
loses,
duty should go hand in hand.
On the counter, Karthik, if suppose the husband loses his job, no, we are in lockdown. A lot of men are now losing their jobs or will lose their jobs, and especially the daily wage earners have all lost their jobs. So they should have any duties that they're not discharging their duties. Now, what should be done to them? Should they all be thrown out because they're not doing their duty?
Ma'am, as soon as the lockdown will get off, they will be asked to go and find the work. That's a legal position in one of the cases in Supreme Court, where a man said that I was taking care of the child for 7 years. I was not working, and now they filed a divorce, and woman asked for the maintenance plus the custody of the child. And court said you have to find work. You are able-bodied, go find the work. You have the duty as per the law.
Yeah. They are asking the same thing through women also now, even though they have chucked their job because they were childbearing and rearing.
So then,
then the division of labor. No, then the division of labor which Karthik talked about, that women to do the domestic chores and the men will provide the economic support, doesn't work anymore. But the question we are arising is that when we say that, you know, that she has a right, but does she have a duty? And we all talk about fundamental rights. Do we talk about duties? In case of women, we remember very quickly the duty. But do we remember our duties? We ourselves as individual citizens. We all know what our fundamental rights are. What are our duties? The conversation of duty is a good one to raise, but why only in case of women? Everybody who has a right has the duty also.
Ma'am, the question that I'm asking is these days, because I understand because patriarchal society and we discuss in this course completely, right? But the thing is when we are defining in by law some specific responsibility on men, and we are talking about equality and a lot of other things that women should also work at home.
Where is the responsibility by law on the men to provide?
Ma'am, it says my economic abuse that he doesn't provide sustenance, he can be asked to do it. It will be economic abuse by domestic violence act.
Economic abuse is when he has the money and he doesn't give. If he doesn't have the money, how does it amount to abuse?
Ma'am, he has to go find it. That's what the judges are interpreting throughout.
Yeah,
fine. He has to go and find out money anywhere.
But if he hasn't, as the court said, no, don't you sell yourself outside, no, you go and become a slave. वो पुरानी ज़माने की कहानियाँ है ना, जब वो राजा हरिश्चंद्र को दक्षिणा देनी थी ब्राह्मण को, तो उसने अपने आप को सेल किया, अपनी बीवी बच्चों को भी सेल किया. ये तो जज नहीं कह रहे ना.
But what Vivek point out, ma'am, in case of divorce cases, when custody of child, which is supposed to be with man or women, so if man position is not economic sound, he will not be given the custody of the child. In that sense, law somehow imposes that man should work.
No, but many a time this is a very common argument to say that he has got a well-placed job, she doesn't have any job, the children will be better off with the father.
Yeah, it is both sides, but somehow law is imposing that in furthering the betterment of the life, somehow some economic means should be there, either man
no,
to
when
or
you look
women.
at the when you look at the Hindu Guardianship and Maintenance Act, the duty to maintain the other is also on the woman. If she is capable and he is not, she is also to provide. He can also ask for maintenance. But traditionally, of course, it was only the men who were supposed to maintain the dependence. But it's not no more there neither.
That was tradition, but
it's not there now even in case of the CRPC. The daughters also have the right to the obligation to maintain their parents, their children, as much as the men have.
And on
so we're returning back
point,
to the question.
I would like to add,
we're returning back to the question which who raised?
Yeah, on Karthik's point, I would like to add.
Karthik raised, yes.
That the traditional point, he says that what is the duty of women, but there would be some kind of I would not say on men or women, but say in order to live better life, both has to do some part of day-to-day work so that life can be better.
Yeah, but you know, whether when these judgments are written, whether the husband was saying, oh, we've thrown her out because she was not doing her work, whether anything, and whether if they wanted, you know, if that was an issue, then they would say, oh, if she will, you know, that the court should give a direction that if she, you know, she has a right to come, but also have these duties to perform. If she doesn't, she can be thrown out.
No, that vice versa is not the same thing.
Yeah. So what is the same?
If somebody is not doing duty, we cannot say it. The law cannot impose that you have to do, otherwise you will be thrown. There is no such law.
No. Because when you look at Hofeland analysis of there will be situations where there are rights, but there are no duties on the other hand. While there are some rights which have a counter duty also. So suppose I have a right to life, but do I have a duty to protect your life as a neighbor of yours? We all have a right to life. But whether there is any duty on any other person to guard my life?
No.
Moral duty.
I have a right to speak. No. I have a right to speak, freedom of speech. But there's no obligation on me to speak. The other persons are not there. They do not have a duty to listen to me when I speak. There are lots of rights which are without duties. The other people are at liberty. There is a right duty combination. There's a right liberty combination. There's a right immunity combination. Lots of combinations are there. So it is not that every right has somebody who is under a duty, or that if I have a right, I have a corresponding duty for that right also vis-a-vis the other person. There's no quid pro quo in the rights discourse. So it's important to think about rights and duties as a combination, but it is not that if I have a right, there is a duty on me also to do something. The duty may be completely independent of the right I'm claiming.
Ma'am, quick question on this Vandana. Ma'am, in this Vandana case, what was the domestic violence incident quoted? When she reiterated was the fact question on law. What was the actual domestic incident report said? Was there a demand for dowry, or what was the domestic abuse exactly she has incurred?
I don't think we have that information in the case. I did not read the original case. I've just looked at the report.
Ma'am, because the point that is, she was staying with her parents, let's say for 25 years, right? And as per the definition, she has the right over her to ask for a shared household from her father also. So in 15 days, why we are moving every responsibility to her husband? They went to honeymoon, she came back, she went to the parental house.
No, Vivek. If I have a right of inheritance to my husband's property and also from my father's property, will the court say choose between the two? Only take one, not both?
Ma'am, she will have both rights. She will have both rights, but she is choosing against whom she wants to go against.
To decide. No. Look at your fundamental rights. For violation of it, you can go to High Court, you can go to Supreme Court.
Ma'am, that's I'm agreeing. That's a choice she had. So it's like an insurance company, we have jointly and severely.
Who are we to judge why you asking this and not that? It's her choice.
Ma'am, that's the whole point. In most of these cases, it's always against the husband. When the law also says consanguinity, never it is talked about consanguinity word. It's always about acting against.
No, Vivek, read the full report. There are judgments on consanguinity also. Read the full report.
Sure, ma'am, I'll read it completely.
Yeah, there are the next one is also on consanguinity. There are cases also. But certainly more problems have arisen with the marriage, because in cases of marriage, there's a slight difference in the two relationships. Relationship by blood, when you grow up with siblings and all, certainly there will be a lot of differences. But there's still some kind of a shared understanding, shared connectedness for a long time. In marriage, it takes a long time for people to become part of that whole value pattern. So in the beginning, there are certainly some issues of settlement, And therefore there's this whole feeling that this person has come into, because of the patrilocal nature of marriages, there's a one person who comes out and everybody has been living together for a long time before this new person joins in. And therefore this becomes the minority who has come into the new household with a different brought up practices, etc. And therefore the adjustment problems are a lot more with this new entry, for the new entry as well as for the old people who are all ganged up together. Not ganged up is not necessarily the right word, who have grown up together in that sense. So therefore, more problems arise of adjustments and of living together with a new person entering, rather than making adjustments to people who already have been. Now, when you were, when as a child you are born, you are the firstborn. Then 2-3 years you are the sole attention seeker for the parents, and then suddenly another child comes in. So there are a lot of children themselves, very small infants. They don't like this new child who has come to the family. But gradually you settle down to that. So that is a time when you're also growing up, but by the time you get to the marriage scenario, it's a scenario where people are mature already. They've got settled viewpoint, they've got settled experiences long time, and they start thinking, now we know what we are up to. So there is a different state of mind at that age when people get married. And that leads to different kinds of problems compared to the problems you would have with your siblings, with your parents, with your extended family, etc. So one has to understand the difference, and that is where more issues have been, the wider problem of violence has been faced by the married women, rather than, it's not that it's not faced by other women in the household. So on questions of levels, you keep on raising the issues of men getting subjected to violence. So there's certainly some men who do get exposed to violence, who are subjected to violence in their families, sometimes by women, but many times and much more often by other men in the family. So that's a real problem. But the system and because of the general nature of our law and the institutions, men, when they are subjected to violence, they can still approach the legal system. In case of women, because of this whole ideology of private-public dichotomy, women do not go access the public phase available. And therefore, the first notice was that though the law provides for hurt, grievous hurt for everyone, but when it's a family matter, the police also tend to feel that, "ठीक है, husband ने मार दिया तो क्या हो गया?" But if a neighbor has hit you, the police will not say something कि neighbor ने मार दिया तो क्या हुआ? Because somewhere we have accepted violence to women in the family setup as normal. And that's what the law is addressing, that it is not normal. And when it is done at a very large scale, we need to do something about it. So that's what the law is dealing with. And because the more instances of violence are with the outsider who has come because of the marriage within their household, therefore, majority of the cases are also of that kind. So earlier, even the violence to the siblings was not recognized. When you look at 498A, at that point of time, we're still not aware. We're not aware that there is violence in the natal family also. All these married women who commit suicide are doing that because the natal family is not supporting. They keep on pushing her back to the marital home, even though she's complaining of violence there. And she doesn't have the wherewithal to live without the support she needs at that time. The family is not providing, the marital family is not providing, so she doesn't know how to deal with it, and therefore she gets into this whole business of self-destruction. So there is the problem is because of this reason that the most cases are of the marital nature rather than of the natal family conflicts. But it is not there. They are there.
Ma'am, I agree with your point of view completely that women faces more, and the explanation you gave, it's completely fine. The thing is, when you go a little bit more extended on the economic abuse and we talk about equality, so there it becomes more a question of fact and circumstances rather than just pure law. Because we expect, like, a woman who quit her job to rear a child is very different from a working woman who doesn't want, a very educated woman who doesn't want to work, right? That's a question of choice. So where you are choosing, right, your right not to work, correct? But at that time, the law should work in a slightly different way. That's
no, Vivek, nowadays, nowadays the judges are saying to women also who are qualified that you can also go out and look for work. And there have been cases, and the starting when the criticism started was this only, that this woman was a professional. She chucked up her job to look after the children in the family. And for 10 years it did that. And then divorce happened. And she said maintenance. They just said, you're qualified, you can go and earn for yourself. First they started with men, then they started using the same argument for women as well. And the fact that she will be now 10 years behind her career because she chucked the job for childcare. Exceptionally, men would not chuck their jobs for childcare. They don't even take leave for childcare. The law also doesn't obligate them to do that. So all those circumstances now, so at one level we say equality, but when we look at the domestic scenario, there's no equality. And therefore, when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to all other responsibility, we say equality. But when it comes to taking care of the household chores, men don't think they are. We still think that no, he has got only the job to do. So he works 8 hours, woman works 24 hours. Because she is at home, work is there all the 24 hours. She's the one who sleeps last and the one who wakes up early morning and then does the work through the day. And that's not work even. So this whole conversation is very important to have from the, for challenging our givens, that what is her duty in the household? What is the duty of everybody else in the household? And if they don't do that duty, what are the consequences of not doing that duty? So first of all, to say that every right has to have a counter duty itself is questionable, given the setup we have. And usually we talk about that if I have a right, they have a duty towards me. But Karthik was raising the point that if I have a right, I also have a duty, which is a good thing to ask.
And at the same time, ma'am, actually, this is the best time to understand the experience in a practical way, actually, because everyone is like in their home. And right now, we can understand how the domestic work is actually going on. A lot of times we don't understand sometimes.
So, okay, we need to move on to the next presentation. Who's going next?
Ma'am, I'm going next.
Okay, Anjali.
So the next one is right to claim residence in a particular shared household. So this case, the Delhi High Court in Sunil Madan versus Rachna Madan. So the question was that the woman could claim, if a woman could claim to reside in a shared household where the husband was residing, despite the fact that she was offered an alternative residence by the husband. So in this judgment delivered by M.L. Mehta, the court, after reflecting on the facts and circumstances, came to a conclusion that the very reason of providing the right to residence was to make sure that the woman was not left stranded and homeless by the actions of the husband. And construing this objective strictly, the High Court stated that if that it could not agree with the wife that the husband, who was the actual owner of the house, and there's this settlement that has been arrived in between, wherein the wife was also given was also given some properties, and the husband was also given some of the properties. So the court could not agree with the wife because she wanted that the husband should be made to leave the premises and made to stay in a very far away place. And also the judge said that looking at these circumstances where the husband was ready to give an alternate residence to the wife, so they could not make the husband leave the premises, and also because of his old age. The court also considered the husband's offer to arrange alternative accommodation of 2-bedroom apartment in the same locality that they had that residence in. And the court
Anjali,
also
sorry
held that
for stopping you here. We are running out of time. We need to move on to the second meeting.
Okay,
we'll continue there.
Yes, ma'am.